Tom Hannafin and Matthew Ray Walter on commentary. The opening match, I thought this probably should have closed the show, considering you have Moose, multiple time former world champion, most recently the X Division champion, and then you got AJ Francis, who is WWE famous. I thought this one probably should have closed the show, but they decided to open the show with it, which I guess is not too crazy. Francis was wearing his Seattle Seahawks gear, despite the fact that the Seahawks lost to the 49ers this week. I know that it was taped before the football game, but he should have fucking known better. He should have known that Sam Darnold was not with that team in Seattle, was not gonna beat San Francisco. That just wasn't happening. But before the match got underway, Order 4 Secret Service and Mustafa Ali came out. Ali joined on commentary. So there you go. Moose, full-blown babyface, doing all the babyface spots, is getting all the chants, and the crowd was actually into him. I was like, man, it's gonna be really hard for Moose to be a babyface, because like he's very unlikable on social media, and he's he's been a really good heel. I think he's been a heel since 2018. I think the last time he was a babyface was whenever he wrestled Austin Aries at that 2018 Slammiversary. And he was a decent babyface back then, but a lot more information. We know way more about this guy, and he has not endeared himself to people over the years. So I thought that was a questionable decision to make him a heel or a babyface, but it looks like it's working out. So what do I know? After a long break, AJ tried to suplex Moose, but Moose reversed it to a big pop. Francis came back with his pop-up forearm and shouted about the money. Moose yanked Francis out of the ring and whipped him into the steel steps. Francis came back and powerbombed Moose on the ring apron, back in the ring. Francis avalanche Moose, then Moose did that running knee in the corner where he flips himself over to the top rope. So there you go. Moose started a comeback. Moose avoided a chokeslam, hit a headbutt, then ran up the ropes and hit a springboard crossbody. And then the crowd went crazy for that. He does that every match, but it always freaking works. But I think with him, he's so big, and AJ Francis is huge. So to see these two big guys being this athletic, two former football players, Moose, offensive tackle, and Francis, mostly practice squad defensive tackle, but he did have some real live game experience. So a former NFL defensive tackle. I thought that I think this is something they need to go back to down the road. I really do. I think there's more juice here with these two guys, but this was a decent match. Moose took out the Secret Service guy with a boot, who was distracting the ref, and then hit a spear on Francis for the victory. I really liked this match. I thought it was a good way to start the show off. And AJ Francis continues to impress. I know nobody's going to really, and people don't like Moose, so they're not going to really compliment the match, but I thought that this was a fun match and a good way to open the show. In the back, other members of the system and then after the match was over, Moose challenged Ali to a one-on-one match at Victory Road, to which Ali accepted. So there you go. All right. Joe Hendry versus Eric Young. So Hendry is in the ring. Eric Young comes out, and he gets the match changed, and it looks like it's going to be Travis Williams. So Joe Hendry finally gets a victory, defeats Travis Williams in a glorified squash match. And then after the match was over, Eric Young turned on Judas Icarus and Travis Williams. And it looks like Eric Young is going to have his so my whole thing just shut down on me. Okay. So I had the results up, but the pop-up ads kicked my ass, and the whole thing just shut down on me. So I'm just going to wing it from here. And IO in the chat, keep me honest. Let me know what happened on Impact. But so Eric Young turns on Sinner Insane, the Northern Armory, which that once Josh Alexander left, the whole faction was dead. It just has not worked with Eric Young. Eric Young has got people in the crowd with signs saying the cleanse is coming. I feel like he's going to take a big shit, but he's doing a gimmick. I think that Eric is going to end up wrestling Joe Hendry at Victory Road, and then that's gonna be part of the cleanse. He's gonna get rid of. He's gonna get rid of Hendry. Yeah, Io said EY pile drove both Sinner and Zayn twice. Yeah, so he did do that. So, but that was the angle. There's gonna be. I was questioning why they were giving this Eric Young and Joe Hendry match away on television, but it turns out it was just an angle. And now Eric Young turned on Sinner and Saint. I wonder what's next for Sinner and Saint. They have not done anything with those guys. They've just been these little henchmen guys they're not impressive henchmen. They should just be out there having good matches. Like that's okay to be guys that have good matches. So I I I don't know. I don't know what's going on with those guys, but I think Eric Young is going to have a different faction here pretty soon. So probably bigger guys. And then I don't know if this was next, but I'm just going to talk about it. There was a fatal four-way with the Rascals were in the treehouse, and they did the whole treehouse gimmick. Trey Miguel is back from injury. We thought he was going to be out a lot longer, but turns out he's fine now. So he was back. So Trey Miguel, Myron Reed, and Zachary Wentz, they were in the treehouse. They were smoking marijuana, and proudly so, I guess, and talking about the match, making jokes about something. This probably went on a little too long, but it's been a while since they've done it, so they just went with it. Which then leads to the match. You got the Rascals, Myron Reed, Zachary Wentz, and Trey Miguel, and you got Jake Something in a fatal four-way. And the story of the match was all three Rascals did their damnedest to take out Jake. And Jake was a beast the whole match. Jake was very impressive in this match, and it's really fun to see these little guys bounce off of him. And that was ultimately the story of the match. And then once they took out Jake, they all kind of turned on each other, which is what happens in these fatal four-ways. And then by the end of the match, surprise, surprise, Myron Reed won. And now he is the number one contender. Leon Slater was on commentary, and he hit the big splash off the top rope onto Jake Something. Jake continues to lose. So I wonder if his contract's up. I know he ended up having a thing with Frankie, which I'll talk about here in a sec, but I just find it bizarre that guy is so big, he's so impressive, and they just figure out, like, they just don't see it in the guy, and they just continue to beat him. But Myron Reed will now challenge Leon Slater at Victory Road for the X Division Championship. Look, it's a B show. They need to get Leon Slater some more wins, and Myron Reed's a guy that they can beat. And they don't value Jake Something, so they had Myron beat Jake, and you couldn't just do a one-on-one match with Jake versus Myron Reed because that's not interesting. So you had to put in the Rascals in there to make it more interesting. And so you had this big four-way number one contenders match. And now to put a little bit of shine on Myron Reed, he's going to be heading in to Victory Road. I think the move is Leon Slater beats Myron Reed. I'd like to see Myron Reed spin off of the Rascals. And then at the pay-per-view at Bound for Glory, I am not really like a guy that does three-ways, but I think we need to give something to the Rascals. I think the Rascals versus Leon Slater in a three-way at Bound for Glory would probably be the way to go there. And then Myron Reed afterwards gets a tag team partner, and then they can do a tag team feud between the Rascals and Myron Reed and whoever his partner of choice is. I think that would be cool. After the match, they do a cinematic style deal with Frankie Kazarian and Jake Something. And Frankie is kind of courting Jake and said that he wants to mentor him. Jake needs something. And I know that sounds cheesy because his name's Jake Something, but very clearly there's something missing there between him and that creative team, and they don't see it in him. And neither is any other promotion either, because he's been a free agent before and nobody's picked him up. So it's like TNA likes him, but they don't see him as a star, and no other company is willing to bring him in. So it's like these two like the company and Jake, they're kind of like married to each other, where it's like they see that he's a really good talent, but they just don't know how to get him to be a star, and he can't get a job anywhere else. So it's like this is the only place he can go. I'm curious to see what happens. I think the whole Jake Something gimmick needs to die. He needs something else. And if putting him with Frankie and giving him a new name and a new gimmick is the way to go. I like it. Last week I said I wanted to see him like being managed by George Iceman or somebody like George Iceman. And then this week, this is what we get. And I'm like, okay, look, now I'm interested in where he goes from here. Because he's just big, strong guy, does moves and growls and flexes. And that's what he does, right? He does the moves with the Z. And people like that. People like guys who do moves with a Z. I like those guys. But if you're going to get over, you got to be more than that. And I hope that he becomes more than that. And maybe Frankie can get him to that next level. We'll see. Or it'll just be another fucking start and stop push. And he's going to be out of the company again by this time next year. So I don't exactly remember what happened next, but I think it was Heather Reckless, Heather by Elegance versus Jessie McKay, and a quick match, and Heather got the victory. She had her feet on the ropes, and M by Elegance was on the outside. Maggie Lee was holding the feet, and it was a whole to-do. And the Elegance girl won. And afterwards, Santino comes out, and he made a match for after the commercial break between Maggie Lee and Cassie Lee, the two Lees. So M by Elegance and Cassie. And then they have a match, and I thought the match was like decent. I thought it was a decent match. And Cassie ends up getting the victory. So now, of course, we're gonna have to have another tag team title match at some point. The Inspiration got to win those tag titles, and we got to move on. We need to see Harley Cameron and Mila Grace in a tag team title feud at some point. We got to get those girls involved. I think they're a really good tag team. But that was that. At some point, the worst segment in probably the history of TNA. I know this sounds like hyperbole. I know it sounds like I'm being mean, but they did a segment that was so bad that I am surprised that it made air. And it was Alicia Fox, Victoria Crawford, doing a podcast. And she was doing a fake podcaster voice, and I think she was trying to be funny. As it turns out, she is not funny. It was bad acting. It was bad writing. It was bad production. The whole thing was awful. It was embarrassing to watch. Like, I felt bad for her watching that. And like, I'm watching it, I'm looking on her face, and she's like, I think she thinks that that's good. And TNA clearly thinks it's good because they fucking aired it. But it was among the worst shit I've ever seen in my life. It was embarrassing. Like, whoever greenlit that needs to go. Like, they got to be done. That was bad. So she does this dumbass podcast, and she's got her mic upside down. The whole thing was a mess. I feel bad for her because I know she's had some problems in her life, and I hope that those problems are not rearing their ugly heads. But, you know, she's doing this segment, and then she's invites Gia Miller on, and the point of the segment is she wants Gia Miller to apologize for having Tessa suspended, and now Tessa's sitting at home. She has no friends, no money. So, like, which says a lot about TNA's pay structure, and can't come to work. And so now Tessa's destitute at home. And Gia Miller, I thought, played her role well and said that she didn't do that. Like, Tessa did that to herself. And so they're setting up a match between Gia and Tessa at Bound for Glory. The Tessa experiment has not worked. And then this is like a last-ditch effort to make the whole thing interesting. And we'll see how it goes. But the Victoria Crawford thing, she's not a good performer. She's not a good wrestler. She's not good on the mic. She's WWE famous, and I get the feeling they brought her in to shield Tessa from racist chants. That's my feel on the situation. I don't know that for a fact. Kind of sounds true, though. It kind of sounds true. But regardless, the whole thing doesn't work. It's just bad television, and they should be ashamed of themselves for putting it on the air. I couldn't believe while I was watching it. I was like, this is bad. This is just bad. So anyway, they did that dog shit. And I'm just going to talk about the main event because, again, my rundown for the show died. I had a whole web page up. It was the Observer, and they had too many pop-ups, and it was dragging the feed down, and then like the whole thing was unresponsive, and then it died. So next time I need to pull the notes over into like a Word document, and then I'll have the rundown. But I'm not going to be able to take notes during the show because I got the kids going on, so I'm watching it, pay attention to the show, pay attention to the kids. I'm doing all this stuff, so that's impossible for me. But I did watch, and I did watch intently, and I do remember what happened. I just can't remember every sequence of events. But we get to the main event, and it is Santana was about to wrestle a job guy, and he's coming through the crowd, and Trick Williams sneaks up behind him. Now, Trick Williams said he wasn't coming to Minnesota, so it was a little switcheroo. He said he wasn't coming to Minnesota, and he was there and did an angle. They also promoted that Trick Williams is wrestling this coming up Tuesday. It's going to be him and Carmelo Hayes versus DIY on NXT. So they did a whole commercial about that. I get the feeling that Trick is going to wrestle Carmelo Hayes for the TNA title at No Mercy, which I don't like him defending that title against non-TNA people. I just think that was weird, but they're already doing it, so is what it is. But yes, Dobby, thank you. And then, of course, Io jumped in. Yes, Trick's attacks intended from behind. Yes, I missed that part. Like I said, I'm going off memory. My memory's not the greatest. I'm old. But, yeah, he was about to wrestle, and he got attacked from behind, coming to the crowd. I thought it was a great segment. I think there's heat in that match, and that's going to be a big match at Bound for Glory. I think they're doing a really good job of building it. So, touche. Kudos to them for how they're building it. I still think that Santana should have won. So I'm not changing my opinion, even if they get another match out of it. So, all right, now let's get to the main event. You got the System as babyfaces coming out to a new theme song, and Chris Bay is on that track. So they did Chris Bay and some people did a new theme song for the System, and full-blown babyfaces. They said that Fandango is not around. That he got taken out by Agent Zero. He's not really, they call him like this giant, but he's actually the same size as Matt Cardona, which is pretty funny. But turns out Fandango got married this weekend too. So him and MJF got married, not to each other, different people, but they both got married on the same weekend. So that's why Fandango was out, or Johnny Dango Curtis, whatever you want to call him. But so main event, the Nemesis versus the System. It was a really good match. Two really good teams. I want to see more of Eddie versus Nick Nemeth. I think they have chemistry. I know they've wrestled before. I think they should wrestle more often. I think we need to see another match between those two. Ryan Nemeth plays his role really well as a shithead little brother, leeching off of bigger brother. I think that act works. System's a really good tag team. The Order 4 interfered and distracted Eddie Edwards. And, of course, interference and distractions all up and down the show. That's just the way it is, I guess. And then Nick Nemeth hit the danger zone to get the victory. And now they're the number one contenders. They're invoking the rematch clause, and they're going to be doing it. I think they said next week. Yeah, next week. So, and they'll be taking on the Hardy Boys next week. But yeah, I thought this week was actually a little bit better than last week, especially with the wrestling. But I think that whoever greenlit that Alicia Fox segment should be fired. 100%. That was terrible. But all right, guys, it is 11:14 p.m. I was on 2 days ago. I was on yesterday. I just did a live stream on Patreon, so go ahead and check that out. Did a little Q&A session, talked about some AJ Styles stuff, talked TV deal stuff, whatever was in the news. I talked about that. So go ahead and check that out. Check us out on Sunday night. We will be back talking all the latest breaking news, and we'll get more into the Paramount WBD rumors talk. But that is going to do it for me this week on the Brace for Impact podcast. And until next time, mahalo.